Good Sunday evening. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Melissa Thomas here with News 13. May 3rd marks the first day of Hurricane Preparedness Week, which runs May 3rd through May 9th. Through this week, each day, the First Alert Meteorologist team will be dropping a video regarding each theme of the day of the week for being prepared and what you need to be considering moving into the start of hurricane season. We do this now while things are calm. That way, you're already prepared. You don't have to think of these things in a hurry, last minute, while a storm might be barreling down on you. So May 3rd, determine your risk. We've got storm surge, rip currents, inland flooding, tornadoes, strong wind. How do each of these hazards impact you, or how could they impact you if a particular storm was moving your way? Now, no storm is going to be Hurricane Michael, but that's the point. No one storm is like another storm. So each hurricane, regardless of the category or size, you want to be paying attention to the hazards that storm in particular entails for you and your family, and then make decisions for your safety according to that information. One interesting thing that I like to point out is the rip current. If there's a storm in the Gulf, and it may not even be rolling over land just yet, it could still be messing that rip current up. So it could be sunshiny and you're going out for a swim on the beach, and that rip current's very dangerous because the Gulf's getting shaken up by a hurricane or a tropical storm that might be near your area. So always be considerate of the flags that are flying when you go out to enjoy the beach and what local officials are discussing as far as the tides and the rip currents, how they're being jostled up by a storm that might be in the vicinity in the Gulf. Might not be quite impacting you just yet. The next one is storm surge. So storm surge is what's going to affect your coastal communities on the shoreline, and not only that, but your neighborhoods in the bays and the rivers connected to the bays, because storm surge is the Gulf being revved up and pushed inland by these storm's strong winds. So you want to know if your home is in particular susceptible to damage due to storm surge. And you might be thinking, how do I know that? Or how do I know if I need to evacuate due to storm surge, a hurricane moving inland? Well, that can be found by researching your evacuation zones in each community. And you want to do this now and not last minute while you're really nervous and trying to figure everything out as a storm is approaching. I like floridadisaster.org, Know Your Zone, because it has all the counties in Florida. You just click on the county, it brings you to the local government's page for the evacuation zones. Counties such as Walton County, Franklin County, Gulf County. I used Bay County right here so that we could see where I clicked on that yellow portion. Let's say I lived there and I clicked on that. I'm in evacuation C. And the closer you get to areas that are susceptible to storm surge, like these communities right along the bay, you see that red goes, it's not just along the beach line, it's into the bay. So if you are in one of these evacuation zones, you want to know your risk as far as where you live, storm surge, and communication from local officials of when you should be evacuating, and recognize, hey, evacuation zone C has just been ordered to evacuate. That's me. I need to utilize my evacuation plan and get out of town. Utilizing your evacuation plan will be a topic for another day. Evacuation plans, supply list, lots of good stuff this week. The other one, and this is a really good example of the size of the storm doesn't really, it matter, or the category of the storm matters, but not as much as you think, because a category 3 storm that may not feel very impressive to you category 3 wise versus the number 5 wise. If a category 3 storm moves slowly over your neighborhood and drops a ton of water, your whole neighborhood could be flooded and homes could be destroyed. So smaller storms that are slower moving can cause just as much financial damage, heartache to people's lives if they get caught in the flood and they're hurt. Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Florence are good storms to look at for examples of how slow-moving, smaller hurricanes really affected communities and what they had to come back from. Flash flooding is no joke. If you're out and about during flash flooding, turn around, don't drown, and check some of those facts out as far as how dangerous water can be for you as a person. Only 6 inches of water can sweep you away. So knowing your risk as far as flooding goes, Where's your home located? Do you typically flood during severe weather events? That's only going to be amplified with a bigger storm, especially a storm that's moving slowly over your community. Check your insurance, check your storm drains for any loose debris so that you can mitigate any damage that may come across your property in regards to that particular risk. The other risk is if you are not evacuating, you don't even have to be near the shoreline for the devastating effects of a hurricane. Hurricane force winds can move further inland, all the way up to, in some very strong hurricanes instances, the Alabama and Georgia state line. So listen to the hazards that are being communicated about each storm. If these winds are going to be making its way farther inland, you will be impacted by that. And if you've decided to stay, you're not evacuating, a tornado safe room would be just as effective for your safety against winds with hurricane force winds. You want to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. So be considering, I'm at risk for the possibility of not just hurricane force winds, but on the outer bands of a hurricane in those storms, tornadoes is also a risk for inland communities. So you want to know what you will do if that risk comes to your front door and you have not evacuated. Knowing where you will take shelter in your home is something to be considering now and getting comfortable with if you have to implement it during a hurricane. So, in conclusion, know your risk before hurricane season. Are you in an evacuation zone? Where are the evacuation zones? Is storm surge an issue for you? Does your neighborhood usually flood if there's a slow-moving storm and dumps a lot of water in the neighborhood? Are you facing flooding effects? Inland, are you susceptible to hurricane force winds and isolated tornadoes? That's many inland areas. What will you do if that does happen? And will you just go ahead and decide to evacuate depending on each information for each storm in your community throughout hurricane season? Because sometimes you may just want to evacuate for the emotional nerves of it. I'm not even going to deal with it. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. But know your risk, know what you will do in the face of each risk through this upcoming hurricane season. But I hope you enjoyed this, and tune in each week through the various meteorologist web pages and News 13 for our videos on each theme of the day for Hurricane Preparedness Week. I'm really glad I got to open the door for this week, and I'll see you Saturday for the finale on May 9th and wrapping and closing up Hurricane Preparedness Week.